Hi, not a coffee chat, but today I'm celebrating my 3-year guitar anniversary. Woo! I've been playing guitar for 3 years now. So I started February 20th. I guess 2023. That's 3 years back. I had a recording on my old phone of me trying to play a riff from Metallica's And Justice for All album, Blackened. No, not Blackened, Harvester of Sorrow. Let me see, I looked it up earlier to remember what the song was, and then I learned how to play it real quick. Wake up. There we go. Yeah. So, I had to record this section because the initial section was muted or something like that. There was no audio. But either way, that was the first thing that I had recorded. So I've decided February 20th was when I started playing guitar, essentially. I started playing guitar I had a cheap electric guitar. In fact, I'm going to go get it right now. Oh yeah, here we are. Here we go. Alrighty, this thing. I think I remember the wireless kind of doesn't work for it. Ooh. I gotta get a cable real quick. Please stand by while I yeah, this is bringing back memories. If I were to... Wait. Oh yeah, there we go. This old thing. Even the cable doesn't want to comply with it. So this was the first guitar that I bought. I bought it from a friend who didn't play it. So this thing is what I brought it to youth group worship rehearsal, and I said, I don't know how to play this. Someone show me. So they had me playing an out-of-tune G chord, I guess. They had me playing just trying to play chords. And I struggled so hard with that in the beginning. And if I had done this, old me would have been absolutely surprised, much less any of the shred stuff I do. But I can definitely feel this thing is not very good. Ugh. I like my Ibanez a lot more. I'm gonna get back to that one, because now the old recording should be in tune. Today, I just wanted to go quickly over kind of my story on guitar. So, it's not actually going to be that quick. Grab a snack or a drink. right out of high school, I got really into Metallica. And that was like all I listened to back then, because it's just like, oh, what's more metal than Metallica? Turns out a lot. I absolutely love Metallica, and I was really drawn to that album and Justice for All, even though I've heard the bass tone is not great. There's no bass in it. I was drawn to that album specifically. And it's funny because now it definitely shows up in my taste that I've gone through. So, started off my early influences. Metallica, Megadeth, Motorhead, Ozzy, and Primus, which is kind of the odd one out. But I had a bunch of the just standard like rock and early metal stuff, popular metal stuff that I loved. And then a friend of mine took me to Steve Vai, and it was in a nice, intimate venue. It was just super close, so I actually was like close enough that Steve Vai could have spat in my face. And I just saw him 3 months into learning guitar. I could barely do. Me then would have been impressed with that, even though that was sloppy as can be. But I saw Steve Vai when I was 3 months into playing guitar, and I just was absolutely blown away by it. And then I went back to the same city, like a few months later, to go see G3, which is Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, and Eric Johnson all playing together. That, once again, absolutely blew my mind. So right off the bat, when I started learning guitar, I had these absolute virtuosos in my ears. So at the time, I was a fabricator, and I just listened to music all day at work. And it was funny because most of the stuff I listened to ended up being instrumentals. And I would hate on my friends' music taste when they listened to stuff that later I would grow to love. Kind of after my virtuoso phase, I say virtuoso phase, and then this is technically a different phase. This is called my technical phase. Because it's like Vai and Satriani are the guys that everyone knows. And these guys, a lot of people know about them too, but they're more along the sides of absolute. The total shred. Yngwie Malmsteen, which is where I learned the harmonic minor scale from him. And Paul Gilbert. Paul Gilbert, absolutely crazy picking technique. So I had him to look at. I heard the guys from Polyphia. Those guys are crazy good with all of the different chords and hybrid picking, tapping, harmonics, whatever. Polyphia, I absolutely loved it. Another guy was Guthrie Govan. Guthrie Govan is absolutely an amazing improviser and guitar player, and he's one of the few guys that I would say, if you need to play anything in the world, you can get them to do it, because they know their instruments so well. But Guthrie had a huge emphasis on improvising, so I ended up doing that a lot really early on, where I learned my scales, and I've always known 3-note per string scales, so we have... We have 3-note per string scales, which already have a bit of a stretch in them, which will show up later. Kind of a side note, I had a composer phase where in the morning before work, I would always watch a video on music theory or something like that, or breaking down film or video game music, because I really like all the ideas that go on behind it. John Williams wrote every movie score ever, and then Hans Zimmer did the rest. I absolutely love the soundtrack for Octopath Traveler, which was written by Yasunori Nishiki. And then just kind of passively, I didn't like intensely study him, but Koji Kondo is a composer who did Mario, pretty much every Mario game up until like somewhat recently. And then like tons of the old Zelda games, which I didn't really play them a lot, but Nintendo games have permeated culture so much that you can't get away from Koji Kondo. That was the side note. This is the next canon event. Before that was filler. The next canon event was Angry Phase. Slipknot, Prong, White Zombie, Pantera. I was a young guy and I was mad at the whole world. And yeah, I literally had times where I just listened to Slipknot and nothing else every single day, 10 hours a day at work, and then in the car going home, and then at the gym. I was in that so long that eventually, like, it felt like this tangled up ball of hot wire inside of me. And then eventually that wire cooled down and it's still just a mess. After that, I kind of got into my, like, psychological music phase. It coincided with getting into psychology myself and trying to understand some different things. I'm really trying to understand what's going on in here and in here. I got really into Tool and Dream Theater and King Crimson, and I just listened to so much, like, extremely sad or whatever music and introspective stuff, and that's still something I like, but it has left an impression on me that I don't really like, and that I end up looking inside at myself and trying to analyze things way too much. I'll mention that a little bit later in terms of my own music. After that, I kind of ran out of, like, stuff that was like what I was listening to. I ran out of the psychological stuff. There was a singular event that got me to get out of that, which is actually the focus of one of my songs on my new album, which is coming out. I'll talk more about that later. But after that singular event, I started getting into different stuff and branching out more. So I had an electronic music bender. So I went and listened to a bunch of different stuff. Like, I had a funk bender for like a month or two. I got, like, my own electronic music person. Like, this is someone singular that I like in this. Katseki. It's a kind of a weird name in how it's spelled, but it has, like, a letter in it or something. I got into Daft Punk, which is what I used to make fun of my friend for, is liking all this funny electronic music, which I started listening to Daft Punk and I absolutely loved it. I started with Random Access Memories, which has lots of guitar and, like, lots of just... I need to wake it up. Yeah. Yeah, just lots of... Lots of just kind of chill guitar. Probably more. I don't know. I can't do chill guitar. That's just not who I am. I got into Deftones, which I never really got into them until I started feeling like this just atmosphere music. To me, Deftones is a little bit like that. Sleep Token is a lot like that. I got into them because I was just like, okay, I see now. It's about the atmosphere. And then it's about the riff. A friend of mine introduced me to some Japanese music. I got introduced to Ado, who's a Japanese singer, and I absolutely loved her. I listened to her, like, every day for, like, months. And so at some point, within the first few seconds of a song, I could tell you what the title was, even though all the lyrics are in Japanese and and a lot of the song titles too. Another group that I got into was Novel Bright, which is kind of they almost play songs that would be like at a wedding or something, but they're more diverse than that. Very, very good band. But yeah, I started branching out a lot, and I got into pop as well because I started singing at, like, I'd say last January is when I started singing and looking into my voice, because I had found that singer Otto and some other popular stuff, because at that point I was like, wait, pop music is cool too? Not just this metal and prog stuff? Wow, it is. So I started listening to different pop artists. And one day where I allowed myself to listen to Sabrina Carpenter, and I was like, this is a vibe. I was like, some of these songs are funny. I didn't take a ton into that. I did really like Benson Boone, though. Very, very interesting songs. And good songs to sing along with, because I realized at that point that I have a really high range. My voice is set pretty high in that I can get up to that stuff, and it's been very helpful singing mystical, magical, oh baby, once you know, my love is so mystical, magical. I should have warned you before I started singing that. That was very helpful for my voice. That's kind of how I've been progressed, and then I got a little bit into Rush because I had to understand pop music before I could understand Rush, because I had to understand songs that are written for the radio. I got into Rush somewhat recently, and I love singing that too. Funny thing about all this, I never really learned to play any of the songs that I loved. I just listened to them, and that I just had them in my head. And then when I go to practice, if I wasn't just running scales, what I was doing is I put on a backing track and run scales, and I just... I just do that. I just noodle around, and when stuff was cool, I did it again, and then I did it again, and then I found out just when it worked, and over time my ears got used to hearing when something's coming, and like how the chord changes work, where things end up going, and like within a scale, how can I move in such a way that I'm prepared for the next chord, even though maybe I don't know what that is. But that's not conscious. That's back here and in here. My ears and my fingers have a loop to know to hear what's coming next, and to try to move that way, or what could be coming next, and how to prepare for it. So yeah, after all that, where I'm at now with guitar is, I started playing guitar I had a cheap electric guitar, and I started playing guitar by showing up to a youth group band practice. But since then, I progressed to the point where I can play on the big church worship team, and I do that every now and then. But for most of the songs, I go and practice them before we have our actual practice rehearsal. But like, I can just listen to the song, and if I wanted to, I could pick it apart and figure out the chords just by ear. But I usually just pull up the music with the lyrics and the chords, and I just follow along. If they throw a song at me that I don't really know, I could still follow along. If they decided to just add one to the set, I could follow along. And because I've heard enough music, and because I know this instrument well enough, I can just follow along and play it. And then if they let me, I can improvise a solo. I really love that I can improvise a solo over nearly any song. So as long as it's not changing key constantly, not using weird chords, or in an odd time signature, I could generally solo over it, and it sounds pretty good. Maybe not to me, though. At my absolute fastest of guitar, I've been able to play at 150 BPM 16th notes, which I'll play a little segment here. I'll put on the metronome that sounds kind of like that. That is hard. There. That was at least attempting to play an easier lick that fast of. At one point when I was really grinding technique, I could just do my scales that fast. At one point I could just do my scales at 150 BPM. I can't do that now. I tried it today, and I think the fastest I can get anything clean is like 135 or something like that. But I'm still pretty fast by most guitar standards. Another cool thing that I can do is some of the best stuff that I can do in terms of speed is legato, because I honed that by doing just doing that over and over again and making it faster. So I can do these crazy legato runs, and then when I eventually, everybody knows the minor pentatonic scale for guitar. Everybody knows the pentatonic scale. At some point, I heard about 3-note per string pentatonic, which you end up getting. You repeat a note every string. You end up playing the same note, but these 3-note per string shapes make more sense to the fretboard. They allow you to cover more ground while still being in the same shape or whatever. So it kind of helps to tie together your normal scale shapes. But at some point, I learned all of the ways to play 3-note per string pentatonic up the fretboard. And after that, I realized I can do this, where I end up playing from the 2nd to the 7th fret. And I can play Smoke on the Water with the largest stretch imaginable. That's impractical, but I've been doing this for so long that I can get this. I have large enough hands that it's like my own Rachmaninoff thing of I'm skilled enough and have big enough hands that you can't play this. That is an enormous stretch. I'm a little surprised at what I can do there. With a lot of these things that I just learned on guitar, I ended up incorporating them into a solo, like that thing right there that I just played. That's during a solo on my 9-minute epic in my album. That's what I believe is the peak of the album, and that's where everything builds up to and then comes back from. That sucked. Why is it getting so dark in here? Something that I learned over the course of learning guitar, I've always heard people saying like, your tone is in the fingers, and like, it's like all about your attacking the instrument, and I hear both sides of that in that there is a lot about just how you play that affects how the guitar sounds. On the other side, it's just making your old guitar player look like they're better than they were, when in reality they knew this. And made faces. In that sentiment of tone is in your fingers, I found out, yes, it is a little bit of this, and that there's just things in like... I mean, it's a combination of both hands, but there's a way you can hold the thing to essentially change the EQ of it just a little bit with the meat of your fingers. But there's a lot more to this hand that affects the tone. So something that I learned and actually show in one of the riffs on my songs is I almost have a fake wah thing, and it's coming from this hand, and it's my quote-unquote secret technique. But it kind of creates like a fake wah sound. So in the riff for Killer, we have... That. Yeah, the first chords, or the first two hits, are, they're low, and then that's the same chord. I'm not changing what I'm doing. I'm not changing what I'm doing with this hand. It's just in this hand that there's something secret. If someone figures it out, they figure it out, but don't tell anyone else, because then they'll be able to play the thing too. That's just the thing of learning to attack your instrument, is that there's stuff, a lot of it is in this hand. The person that is the case study for your tone is affected by your fingers is Jeff Beck, who played with fingers, where he... Jeff Beck played with his fingers, and so he really got different dynamics and different volumes out of every single note. It took me a while to understand Jeff Beck. I think the last thing here that I want to look at is, in terms of guitar techniques, is hybrid picking. Because after listening to Polyphia, I'm like, fine, what I'm going to do is I hear your stuff, and I'm just going to copy stuff. Well, rip it off, but make my own riff and try to understand what's going on here. So one of the things that I came up that got me into hybrid picking, where I pick with my pick and then also use this finger, is, let me see if I can play it cleanly here. So what that is here is, for those of you counting at home, one pick note, hammer on note, finger pick note. So. Messed it up on the end there just because I'm used to playing it at a different speed, so I just end up... That's also outlining a very jazzy chord progression where we have... I really like that. That's going to be about it in terms of the guitar technique. Finally, we're getting around to this stuff. So, my album is potentially, as long as I keep putting my head down and working on it and things keep going, potentially 2 months away. Maybe even shorter. But recently I've been feeling very stuck trying to fix what I have in terms of like guitar tone or the voice, because the vocals are things that I just haven't done for 3 years, like this thing. But some of the things is just like, I was struggling to play this stupid killer riff of... struggling to play that stupid thing. Like, that's like nearly Enter Sandman. Basically the same notes, reshuffled. But I was struggling just to get that riff played right, and even getting the guitar tone, because like the guitar tone, at least now, I changed strings the other day because I'm just like, this doesn't sound right. So I feel like I've only been taking breaks with my music because it just like seems like I come back to it and I'm like, this is, everything sucks, and I try to fix it and I'm like, this sucks now. This is better, but it sucks. Ah! I think I'm hyperfixating on just trying to get everything perfect, and it's made me want to just give up with the album and with a lot of other things, that I just feel like I'm just terrible at this. And part of me just wants to move on from this album. I want to continue to write new and cool stuff. but I can't just leave this album to rot because all these songs that I've wrote are important to me. I have like 11 songs and it's like 52 minutes now, which I think is a good length. I listened to some of them, a significant number of them, in order, and they are sequentially good. They sound good one after the other, and then the last several specifically, they all keep building until the moment in my big song, which I'm calling Summit. The big song, there's just an immense amount of stuff that goes into that, and at least with people I've shared it with, I've shared it with them, and I'm starting to understand why a lot of this is so hard for me, is that I share this with other people, and I see everything that's gone into it, in terms of like, I see all the meaning, and when I hear them back, it seems like the song just isn't recorded well enough or not performed well enough that they can't see the meaning past it. Does it really mean anything to pour my heart into pour my heart and my soul into these songs when ultimately people can't tell what I'm saying, or they're not willing to listen past the vocals? They're not willing to give up the fact that this is my voice. There's a part of me that wants it to be the sentiment of, these are my songs, and so I'm gonna sing them because they mean so much to me. Yeah, I can't leave this album to rot. I need to let go of these songs and get it out there. I specifically need to let go because these aren't my songs. These songs happen to me. So much of my way of playing is not I learn a song. So much of my way of playing is I just do. I just hear a backing track or I hear a song and I just play over it. And that things just come out, and when they sound good, I do it again and I try to remember them. I have like a billion riffs on my phone where I was just messing around and then something flies out that I like. So I just record it so I can have it. So much of my playing is spontaneous that these songs practically happen to me. And on different instruments too, where I just loop a riff and then go on the drums and play something, or go on the bass or the keyboards, and then I come up with a part. And these songs just flow like that, and they happen to me. They're not really mine. Whether you believe in the universe, like, giving you energy or whatever else it might be, your collective unconscious of your society. Personally, I believe it's God, and I believe I've openly shared that I play guitar at church. I'm a Christian, and specifically my church is non-denominational. That doesn't really matter. It does, but it doesn't. But I believe that these songs happen to me through God, and you can believe whatever you want about your universe giving you energy or the songs. And there's so much in these songs that happens that I don't know and I don't have control of at the time. Like Killer, I wrote as just a dumb monster song before Halloween, and then over time the meaning evolved to be like, this song isn't just a song about archetypal monsters. This song is about a man discovering he has a monster inside of him. And then that was no longer the meaning. It's no longer about the monster inside of him. It's about humanity as a whole being that way. And then it's no longer about humanity as whole being monsters inside of them. It's now about, it's still kind of about just the one man, but this man recognizes the monster inside of him. and tries to deny that and push that away, because he also recognizes that there's something else inside him that is so much more than human beings. And so I added a final line to the song where I'm talking about there's something inside of people that transcends being human, and that there's this nature that I've felt, and I should say the man in the song is me, of course. Who else could it be? But this recognition of I feel like I'm less than an animal at times, but I know that there's something inside me that is more than just a human. And so there's that struggle with it, and that's what Killer is really about. And that line comes right before the solo, and I think the solo is perfect for that exact feeling of a man struggling to push aside his monster and bring out this wonderful thing that's deeper inside of him. There's a bunch of the songs on my album that are like that, or they're desperate pleas, just asking, do other people even feel these things? I'm scared of releasing these songs because they're so close to me, and I feel like I know humanity as being something that's just there to take from you and just there to degrade you. And so I'm afraid of putting them out there because of that. But I made a promise to someone very important to me that I would have an album out by June 1st of this year. So I need to follow through on that. And it's another process of just, like, when I was listening to Tool and Dream Theater and King Crimson and whatever, I kept looking inside for answers, and that all that there was inside of me was just this hot ball of barbed wire. And then it just got less hot, and now it's just a cold, mangled, sharp mess, it feels like. And so my album and writing these songs, well, not even having these songs happen to me, has been like hearing them from somewhere else and hearing them, and then they impact me in a way where I'm able to get past a bit of that mess. My hope is that that can be shared with other people, and that other people see the value in that, and that does the same thing for them. I've been talking at my camera for 40 minutes. Farewell, and have a fabulous day.